All right, welcome to Fire Service Warrior. What we're going to talk about today is situational awareness and disorientation. We consider these to be mindfulness skills and fall into that category of Fire Service Warrior mindfulness because situational awareness, maintaining situational awareness is a cognitive skill. It's not something that we learn by throwing ladders or by forcing doors or by pulling hose lines. It's really a skill that we have to lay the foundations for in a classroom setting and that we have to spend quite a bit of time thinking about on our own. So what we want to do is start off by defining what is situational awareness. Well, essentially, situational awareness is knowing what is happening to the team in regards to our mission. That definition is drawn from the Coast Guard and their understanding of the concept, and it works pretty well because the reality is anytime we're operating on Fireground, we're operating as part of a team. And we need to understand not just what's happening to us individually, but what is happening to the whole team in regards to our mission. Another way to look at it is this. Anywhere on the Fireground that we exist, any building we pull up to that's on fire, there is a 360-degree threat bubble that exists there. So, if our understanding of situational awareness is that we exist somewhere within this bubble, and within this 360-degree threat bubble, threats can come from above us, below us, to our left, to our right, in front of us, or behind us, then truly having situational awareness is knowing where we are in the bubble in relation to the fire, to our primary means of egress, to our secondary means of egress, to other companies operating on the Fireground, and to the other members of our company. Having that total understanding means that we have good situational awareness. Now, we've talked about the fact that situational awareness is a cognitive skill. And there are three key elements in classical situational awareness that we have to understand. So, we have to be able to perceive a condition. In other words, we have to be able to observe it. And once we observe or perceive a condition, then we have to comprehend it. We have to understand what we're seeing. This is where our key skills of building construction, fire behavior, and reading smoke come into play so critically. We have to be masters of these three topics because the reality is fire is the enemy, and we have to understand how the enemy is going to behave if we're going to be able to operate in that threat environment successfully. The building is the battleground. We have to know how the terrain is going to behave. We have to know whether or not we have 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes before certain signs of deterioration are going to appear so that we know what kind of time we can spend in that threat envelope. And reading smoke is tactical intelligence. Reading smoke tells me what the fire is doing. It tells me where it's been, where it's at, where it's going. And it gives me critical clues that allow me to help maintain my situational awareness. But once I've perceived and predicted a set of conditions or observed and understood a set of conditions, the final piece to situational awareness is being able to predict or anticipate what's going to happen next, right? I've seen this movie before. I know what's coming. That is true situational awareness because what are observation and understanding? They're size up. They are the skills that we are already training our firefighters to do when it comes to size up. That next step in the pie that next piece of the puzzle, so to speak, is being able to anticipate what comes next. So that when I pull up on that two-story ordinary, heavily charged with smoke, that's coming out of the front door with good velocity and with a lot of density, I need to be able to recognize that that is a sign of an impending flashover and not commit my company to crawling inside because I've anticipated what can happen next. So, if having all of this in place gives us situational awareness, we have to recognize that the flip side of that coin is disorientation. Disorientation is a loss of our sense of relationship with our surroundings. We need to minimize disorientation and promote good observation, understanding, and anticipation if we're going to reduce our likelihood of becoming a fireground fatality. Disorientation is a root cause of firefighter fatalities. So what happens? What are some things that bring about disorientation? Two key areas that we're going to talk about today are a lack of positive actions to maintain situational awareness and the reaction of our nervous system. So our positive actions, we talked about size up, right? Size up is the first two parts of the situational awareness process. Being able to observe, being able to understand, being able to perceive or comprehend, whatever terminology you want. That's good size up skills. For our firefighters pulling up on the Fireground today, I don't think that 13 steps of Colwa's wealth or some other long mnemonic is a good set of criteria for them to be evaluating. It's too much information. Look at Lawrence Gonzalez's Deep Survival. You're going to see that we only have so much working memory, so much RAM at our disposal in a threatening environment. What we want to do is limit the amount of key critical data that we are trying to bring in to evaluate. To me, what those key areas are: the building construction, fire location, and state. How big is the fire and where is it at? That's it. Those three pieces of information are what I think every single firefighter on the Fireground needs to know. Everything else is a detail that will come as part of their specific assignment. But these three areas, the building, where's the fire at, how big is the fire got, those are critical pieces of information that every single one of us needs to have. And if we're going to commit to the inside of the building, have we ventilated? Because the reality is ventilation changes how that fire is going to behave, and we have to understand that. In addition to good size-up skills, we need to practice good search techniques and the use of thermal imaging. Good search techniques allow us to stay oriented to the environment that we're operating in. Oftentimes that environment is low to no visibility. And oftentimes we are going to have to commit to searching that building separate from a hose line or a rope oriented to the outside of the building. If we're going to commit to primary searching in that manner, then we need to do good, thorough searches with a good search plan to help maintain our orientation in the building. When we're using thermal imaging, we need to remember that thermal imaging is not Superman vision. We have to understand the capabilities and limitations of the tools. Thermal imaging does not see through walls. If we point our TIC at a wall and see a steam pipe running up through it, we're not actually seeing the steam pipe. What we're seeing is the piece of drywall that the steam pipe is behind that has been warmed because of radiant heat. All thermal imaging shows us is surface temperatures. We can point a thermal imager at a floor with a raging basement fire underneath it, and all we will see is the surface temperature of the plywood, which could be 70 degrees. We have to understand the limitations of that technology and not rely on it to do more than it can. The fourth thing on our list of positive actions: control the environment. What do we mean here? Coordinated ventilation. Good, solid, coordinated ventilation. We don't want to open the building up too early and allow the fire to grow before we're ready to advance to the seat of the fire with a charged hose line. But we also don't want to delay ventilation to a point where our crews are forced to operate in a zero visibility environment for an extended period of time. If we look at the firefighter disorientation study by Captain William Moore of the San Antonio Fire Department, in all of the cases he studied, conditions went from manageable for interior operations, we could see, to prolonged periods of zero visibility. And in 100% of those cases studied, a firefighter fatality occurred. We have to restore vision. We are visual creatures. We interact with our environment by sight. That's why people wear glasses. That's why I wear contact lenses. We have to be able to see. And the sooner we do this, the less likelihood a member of our team can become disoriented. And finally, good air management. Because air management techniques are what allow us to remain calm under pressure. They give us that buffer of feeling like we can continue to perform and thrive in the environment because we can breathe. For those of you who have ever had the experience of having your low air alarm activate and not knowing exactly if you had enough air to get out of the building, you know that your pucker factor goes up. That heart rate starts going. And as soon as that heart rate begins to ramp up because of anxiety, a cascade of problems occurs because of the reaction of our autonomic nervous system. So, our body operates in one of two basic states. At rest, our parasympathetic nervous system, or PNS, is engaged. Our heart rate is slow, our vision is as good as it's going to get, we're generally mellow and relaxed. But what happens when a threat occurs? We begin to switch over to our sympathetic nervous system, the SNS. Yeah, I know that says PSN. Whatever. Sympathetic nervous system starts to engage. When the sympathetic nervous system starts to engage, a cascading chain of events occurs. You saw in the graph that I put up before, it's in my book, it's in my Situational Awareness article in Fire Engineering. When we are sitting here, cool, calm, and collected in the white zone, somewhere between 60 and 80 beats a minute, we're as calm can be. We may actually be thinking about things other than what's really important. Well, what happens when a threat occurs? Our body releases stress hormones. Epinephrine, cortisol, that adrenaline response that we're used to as part of our fight or flight response. What happens is we start to jack up into that yellow zone. Here, we're somewhere up around 115 beats a minute. At this point, we begin to lose some of our fine motor control. So what does that mean for us? Well, maybe I can't snap the snaps on my coat real well. Maybe I'm having a hard time manipulating my radio microphone or my pass device. Maybe I'm having a hard time tying knots. These are all deficits that begin to occur because our body is shunting resources to the primary survival centers in the brain. As our heart rate climbs higher, we enter the red zone, around 145 beats per minute. Now this is because of anxiety, not exertion. Here, we lose gross motor skills. I no longer am able to swing my axe effectively. I'm no longer able to coordinate my hand and eye movement so that I strike the sledgehammer onto the striking surface of the Halligan bar. As I climb above 150, upwards towards 170, 175 beats per minute, I enter the gray zone. My cognitive processing deteriorates. I may physically begin to experience tunnel vision because of perceptual narrowing. My peripheral vision shuts off. I may experience auditory exclusion. I may lose my near vision. I don't see the hole in the floor in front of me. I may experience a loss of depth perception. I no longer know how far I am into the building. And if I am truly placed in a life-threatening moment where my body feels 100% challenged and my heart rate goes upwards of 175 beats per minute because of that, I enter the black zone. I may irrationally fight or flee. I may freeze. I may engage in submissive behavior. I may void myself, loss of bowel or bladder control. How many NIOSH reports have we read about a firefighter who died up against a drywall wall, who gave up? It wasn't because they were a bad firefighter. It wasn't because they didn't have good training. It was because cognitively, they were in the black zone. Their heart rate had skyrocketed because of the reaction of their sympathetic nervous system to the point where they only did what they had done before. If we are not training our people to continue the fight, regain control of their senses, and press on, those disorientating events can kill them. That's what being combat ready is about. It's about being ready for this sympathetic nervous system engagement and the cascading chain of events that it can bring about. We're going to leave you with one thing as a takeaway as part of this mindfulness training before we leave. Because all of this is really good information, but if I don't give you a skill set to practice, it's of no good. Here's the key to this whole thing. Don't panic. Gain the self-awareness, gain the self-mastery to control that emotional response. Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, said, "Fear is the mind killer." And the reality is the reaction of our sympathetic nervous system is just that. It is fear killing our minds. Practice remaining calm under pressure. And when you find yourself beginning to get anxious, slow down and breathe. Seriously, engage in tactical breathing. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 4. Exhale for a count of 4. Pause for a count of 4. 16 seconds it's going to take you. You're going to drop your heart rate. You're going to begin to regain control of that sympathetic nervous system. And you're going to be able to start thinking your way out of the problem you found yourself in. So do everything that you can to maintain your situational awareness. Try to avoid disorientation and prepare for those disorienting events. But most of all, remember this. When things start breaking bad, don't panic. That's it for this week. That's our mindfulness thoughts. That's a little bit of our orientation of the way we teach situational awareness in the classroom. When we get on the Fireground, we begin applying this skill set in a dynamic, threat-filled environment. But we have to start here. We got to start at this whiteboard. We got to learn these concepts. We have to understand how our body responds so that we can begin preparing for that. So that's the takeaway for this week. Look for some posts this week. They're going to help flesh things out. We got a lot of cool new stuff coming here at Fire Service Warrior. I hope you enjoy the new website. Please keep sending us your emails. They mean a ton to both myself and Brian. And you just keep help contributing to the overall mission here. So thanks for visiting. Thanks for your input. Learn this. Do it. Have a great week. Cheers.